So welcome everybody. We will start this morning session with the Guru Yoga one time in Tibetan and one time in English. From the crown of my head, palace of great bliss, I pray to you, beloved Root Lama, O precious one, grant me the blessings to recognize my own true nature as a Buddha. So welcome everybody, all the organizers, all our translators, and everybody who is helping with the supporting to organizing the technical parts. And I know some places people are gathering together as a part of retreats, like in Baía de Bravo in the stupa, and also our European Sangha gathering together in Bukanau. So I wanted to welcome everybody. I'm very thrilled and excited about this 6-month online courses. So as you all know, so this is the topic has been very important to my heart, and something that I my life is dedicated to, and I try to diligently try to do my best to try to serve, and this is what I think it's very important, the topic that to discuss in any spiritual community, and any particularly any spiritual community, especially in our Lingmicha international community. I think this is, I hope that we all really look at very closely in the principles of the teaching, and we look very closely in ourselves and our relation to others and how we can serve the best. So transforming your world through services is now, this is a 6-month course that all of you know. Every second Saturday of the month, we will be doing each session. So basically every second Saturday, there will be one online. And those who are first time coming here, these all live webcasts are free, and there are multiple languages translation, and usually we have around 11 languages translated into, and we definitely want to add more languages in the future. And these also, all these teachings are recorded so that Afterward, one can download this in MP3 version, and then also these teachings are also recorded on as live teaching. This is recorded, and people who are not able to join in person this time will able to watch it later on our websites, particularly Ocean of Wisdom and linkmaturelearning.com. You will able to watch them there. So, and also this and upcoming our spring retreat in Serenity, Virginia, which is our main retreat center. We will be also doing a retreat dedicated on these topics. So, and I hope that many of you who are able to join, we will very much love to welcome you. It's a beautiful place. Place where you can stay, and there's a lot of supports there. So I hope many of you will be able to join to the retreat. So as you can see also, this each month kind of next 6 months, we have kind of outlined a little bit. So this today live webcast, we are going to talk a little bit about value of enlightened leadership. And then next month, we will talk a little bit about cultivating wisdom. And the month after, generating compassion, service and spirituality, inspiring others to serve, and the question and answer. Of course, these are kind of divided into different topics, but we will all, I think the topics will also kind of overlap each other. And because even during today, I want to talk a little bit about all of them and just kind of more introduce all of these principles. So first, talking a little bit about the value of enlightened leadership. And I know the word enlightened leadership is kind of becoming a little bit popular, and many people are using this word and doing different things. And there are a number of things online, these things. So I wanted to define a little bit what I mean by enlightened leadership here. And so I wanted to not look at as any other things, but this is a specific thing, a very special thing. And so enlightened leadership is, my concept of enlightened leadership is basically the spirituality and services are very much connected. So any Dharma practitioner, any spiritual practitioner, if you're genuinely trying to practice spiritual practice, and I think part of that spiritual practice is, it's about service, it's about supporting others. For example, right from the beginning, we talk about compassion. In any foundational practices we do want to practice, we talk about compassion. Compassion is very much like about caring other people and understanding others' pain. So understanding others' pain, interested to understand others' pain, understanding others' pain, respecting others, and trying to help to overcome others' pain is the root and fundamental aspect of the Dharma. And because without the compassion, there's no way to achieve one's own self-liberation. For example, there's no way to achieve enlightenment. There's no way to achieve Buddhahood. There's no way to achieve the rainbow body without the practice of compassion. In the same way, the practice of wisdom, so compassion, and we talk about compassion and wisdom. So the practice of wisdom is very much about something within oneself. It's about very much about self-realization. So generally, the principle of wisdom will be like in the sutric traditions will be the understanding of shunyata, a realization of shunyata and emptiness. And so that means understanding the truth of the phenomena, and more like in a Dzogchen teaching, and it talks about self-realization, being aware of yourself. And basically this kind of it translates into being fully aware of one's ego. So if one is not aware of one's ego, when one is not know one's ignorance, there is no way to have self-realization. If there is no self-realization, there is no wisdom. If there is no wisdom, then there is no Buddhahood. There is nothing. One cannot achieve Buddhahood if there is no if there's no wisdom. So basically, wisdom means self-realization. Self-realization means very much full understanding about ignorance and ego, and that comes down to very much acknowledgement of one's own pain. For example, so this notion of the wisdom and compassion, if one does not know one's own ego, one's own limitation, and one's own pain, then there's no way to really fully understand one's ego. If one does not understand one's ego, there's no way to understand to have a wisdom, self-realization. If there's no self-realization, there's no Buddha. So I repeat this again. That's kind of, I think, is a core aspect of this enlightened leadership that I'm talking about, is based on compassion and wisdom. These two core principles. That is exactly the reason that service and self-realization is together, because many times I think if you look at other people talk about enlightened leadership, and the notion of enlightened leadership is not completely rooted in a sense of these two fundamental aspects of the teaching. Some of them might be, but many times there seems like a kind of a little bit far away from that. So, and one of the reasons I can understand reason not to get into these topics is these topics gets a little bit more complicated, a little bit more, not everybody will understand and relate to it. And so they have to talk in some very basic way, to more accessible way for other people, other leaders and other ordinary people to understand and relate to. But here I'm assuming my audience here is more, somehow people have some background of the teaching and Dharma already, and people are already engaged in the services. But somehow, as we all do, as I do, we all do sometimes struggle in the process of serving others, because we these two fundamental quality we lack. For example, let's say I will talk a little bit about each one of them a little bit more in depth. So for example, in terms of the compassion, that compassion is something that it's not about only having compassion, mother having compassion to the child, a brother having compassion to the sister, relatives, families having compassion to one's own relative, family member. It's not about that. So compassion somehow needed to go a little bit beyond one's own grasping territories, so that somebody other than oneself, other than part of your circle. So I think it's very important to have some sense of compassion, to open up the door for compassion, and in some cases to people who you are having some challenging relationship. So not, for example, in a service, one thing what happened is that we run into a conflict in the service, is that we always face people who do not necessarily agree with you, and so people have wrong opinion about you, people who do not agree with you or the way of where you do things, and you isolate yourself from those people, and they are isolated from you, and slowly a conflict arises between you and those people, and then those people definitely out of your compassion, object of your compassion, because people say, when I'm having compassion, I'm going to have compassion to all the sentient beings except those people, except that person, except that group. So you kind of isolate yourself from those people. So, and we, intellectually speaking, we all know that's not the right thing to do. We know that in compassion, you don't isolate somebody. You're trying to have compassion to everybody, and everybody knows that. Everybody in the Buddhism and the teaching Dharma, everybody talks about it. Everybody, we all teach that way. We all claim to practice that way. But when each one of us face individual challenge, when you face your challenge in your particular emotional situation, very often we fail. Very often we are not able to live up to our idea of what it means to serve or what it means to help other people, because somehow we get caught up with our own fear and negative emotions. So that's why the practice of compassion is very important. It's addressing other people. It's addressing other people. So in the practice, we always have to remember that whatever you are doing, there is some sense of collective purpose. So if not fully others, there's some collective purpose, that something that I believe, something that you believe, something that we all believe, and that what we all believe is we all agree to serve that collective purpose. And we many times when we enter into the groups and organizations, we have those purposes because we have not involved on our own personal ego and conflicts and our own stories. We have that pure kind of service, collective service purpose. And as we enter into the group dynamic, and then sometime I think what happened is we begin to lose those collective purpose, and then it becomes more like a my way or your way issue. So we kind of lose connection to other people. There is other people that we are trying to do. It's not just me and myself. We are trying to do this for other people. There's a bigger collective purpose. So I think that is kind of very important as far as the compassion's relation to the compassion. And of course, in terms of the wisdom, we all know that our own ego, our own identity, and particularly our own pain identity, whenever we bring our own identity, particularly pain identity, into the service, it's very difficult to help other people, because somehow you have not able to help yourself, because you're coming from a wrong space and wrong awareness, wrong qualities. Therefore, your ability to help others are clearly not effective. So somehow addressing that a sense of what wisdom means. So the wisdom and compassion is absolutely, I think, the most important to a piece of element. So I know, like most of us, or most of the people, or maybe many of you are listening, you might think, okay, I understand that. But what does really wisdom means for me? What it really means, a compassion for me, what it really means in my service to other, what it has to do with my service to others, how they are all related to each other. That is obviously a very important question. So I know, like it's not a easy topic to kind of everybody to understand, but I wanted to kind of explain a little bit in a simpler version, a simpler way to understand that way, that these two principles will be basically whatever you're doing, your true intentions, what that true intention is. Are you really trying to help others? Helping others Is it a priority? Are you really open? Are you really open to help others, whatever way it might serve others, not only your way? So there's clearly a sense of need for others. That means others suffering, because the compassion is realizing others suffering and wanted to help that others overcome their suffering. That's the compassion. So that intention is clearly there. Sometimes it might be there very strong. Sometimes that intention is not strong enough. Sometimes you might think, I used to have that intention, but somehow in the middle of all this story, I kind of lost the point. So of course, we can always lose the point. We can always come back to the point. Are you ready? Are you willing to come back to the point? So that is aspect of a simple way to understand the compassion here. And then the understanding of the wisdom is different. Understanding of the wisdom will be, am I willing to let go of myself, the self which is not me? So that is referring to my pain identity and my ego. If my pain identity and my ego is very involved in a service, as we said, it's not going to do a good job. And you will face more challenges because it's your pain, it's interacting, because your ego is interacting, you will face more obstacles for sure. When you face that, so are you willing to see that? Are you willing to look at that? Do you notice something like that? Or when I notice something like that, saying, okay, I see I'm getting too much involved with my personal stories, my pain, my ego, I am willing to let it go. If I have to let it go completely, I'm willing to let it go. If I have to go 50%, I'm willing to let it go. If I have to agree with somebody I don't like that much, I'm willing to do that. If I have to bring somebody who I have a little bit fear of, who might be an obstacle and challenging for me, I'm willing to bring that person in this process of service. Am I willing to do that? If I'm willing to do that, the ability to willing to do that has something to do with the self-confidence, self-realization, not doubting yourself, not doubting your confidence, not realizing that you have not much to lose or you have nothing to lose. You're doing your best to serve. So that some sense of openness is the wisdom. So basically, simple understanding, as I said, complicated understanding shunyata, understanding of self-realization will be what wisdom would mean. But in a simple way to understand will be wisdom could mean something's wisdom or similar to wisdom, or if something, that state of mind have effect of wisdom, that is the sense of openness. I'm open. I'm willing to open. Personally, for I always think like that. I wanted to open. I wanted to open more. I realize I'm open. I realize there's a need. There's more space I can be open. I realize I wanted to open. I realize that I'm going to try to open. I realize maybe I'm facing some challenges of opening, but I'm not going to give it up. That's a single practice. That's the single practice. The more I am open means I'm transcending myself. I'm arising myself beyond the ego. That is the goal. And as I do that, for clearly I will serve more, I will serve better. So these two are the, how you say, the fundamental qualities that which we will also talk, which is next, and then next 3 months we will talk more about it. So what are the kind of obstacles of serving others? When we don't have the wisdom and compassion based intentions. So I defined what wisdom means, what compassion means a little bit here. So the pitfalls are not having intention or rooted in the base of wisdom and compassion when we serve. Getting caught up in one's own ego and pain. Getting caught up in one's own ego and pain in the process of serving other people. So all of us that we serve, this moment that you think you're serving a community, you're serving a family, you're serving somebody, you look. If you are facing any challenge in this process of serving, you can clearly say that your ego and your personal pain and stories are influencing the process. And it's important that we give a really I think a gift of time to ourselves to reflect on this. So whenever, if I am facing challenges in serving, and that means I am getting involved with my ego and personal pain and my own stories. That is exactly the reason why I am facing pain. And that these pain and these conflict will prevent my ability to serve others and serve better others. So my spiritual practice is to open more myself, being aware of others more, being aware of others' feeling and others' pain more, realizing the need of a little more respect to others, caring for others, listening to others, including others in the process. So that, I think, very important. I think the mistakes or the obstacles. And the other obstacles is also, in the beginning we all have a good intention. I mean, I know, like, sometime in the community, like, I meet people who are very, very enthusiastic about me, about the organization, and they come with a lot of enthusiastic about it. And then when they enter into organization, and then they face this challenge, their story, their personal pain, their personality and power games people face. And when they face those things, they have learned the teaching, they have learned the practices, but those teaching, those practices, they were not able to apply there. They're not applied there. So instead of affecting the situations affect them, then they lose the connection to the teaching. They lose connection to the teacher. They lose connection to the sangha. They lose connection to that collective service intention they have in the beginning, because they get mixed up with the too many different stories. They're not able to distinguish them. I always pray my people enter into the service, they can always keep these things a little bit more separate. The most important thing is the teaching and the practice. They might have stories with other things, but they're not lose the connection to the teaching in that way. But unfortunately, sometimes people do. So what I'm saying here is one of the mistake is losing the original collective purpose goal that people come in. So I think it's important to remember and keep oneself reminding that why I'm here and what I'm trying to do, and never get lost into those stories. And then I think the big mistakes is also when people do get lost in the stories, then people come to, instead of really being aware of somebody's pain, somebody's challenge, having some respect to others, trying to understand and help others, they go into the opposite direction, where they're trying to like somehow think bad about other people. They are they maybe in some sense of unconsciously wish something wrong happens to somebody, or if they hear something wrong happening unconsciously, they are like inner invisible smiles are happening. They cannot admit officially saying I'm happy, but inside there is some kind of smile happening, that or something not good happened to that person that I don't really like it. When you come to that, when you go that far, it's the most damaging is not to others, it's the self-damaging, because you went from the self-realization to self-damaging direction, and you are probably very often you are not even conscious that's what's happening. And of course, the worst case will be if you're actually taking some action, or trying to create a situation and actions, and that something not good will happen to somebody. That's really like a totally against the principle of Dharma. So I mean, I hope that we don't have to even discuss about these things so much, because most of us, we have no intention to go that far, but intention is more like a struggling the challenges of serving others better. So one thing I think also kind of very important in order to serve others, it's also really like taking care of oneself better. Because if you cannot take care of yourself well, if you cannot take care of your own need well, if you cannot address your own pain well, or you cannot host your pain well, reflect on your conflict well enough, it's very difficult to serve, because you don't have a clear space. No clear space means no wisdom. No clear space means no warmth. No warmth means no compassion. No wisdom, no compassion means no service. A genuine sense of service. A service which is spiritual practice. Service which is toward self-realization. That kind of higher level of enlightened service, it's not there. Otherwise, of course, I can suffer, and I feel not nourished enough. I feel so much conflict. I can still go out and do some good actions. Those are not, in long run, those services are not very good, and those services will be self-damaging. Those services will not last very long. Those services eventually will not be helpful to others also, because they will feel your own closeness. They will feel your own pain. They will feel your own effort. They will feel like some sense of like guilty, maybe even, that they are trying to they're getting something from you which you are not really willing to give at all. You're giving, but you're not willing to give. You're not prepared to give. you're still giving it. It's very difficult to receive things like that when somebody is giving something which they're not ready to give. So I think it's really important to some sense of well taken care of oneself. Because when you take care of yourself well, you are strong enough, you're open enough, you're confident enough, you're stable enough, you're able to see more clear, feel more clear, act more precisely, and I think then that's where you will be able to help more other people. So what I would like to do now is to do a short practice. I will explain what we're going to do in this particular case here is that we are going to practice with 3 precious pills. As many of you already know, 3 precious pill, what 3 precious pill is, and those you are first time here, and I would recommend to look at our other videos, the past videos, and I think there are some videos on YouTube called 3 precious pills. You will see the reference to that, or if you look at like awakening the sacred awakening the luminous mind and the sacred body, you will see the reference to these 3 precious pills there too. So just to briefly explain that, it will be what we need in order to help us is just to calm down ourselves. So